Hey there, guys. I'm doing this reading from Love's Bridge. It's called 22 Carrots in the Snow. Um, the characters Alina and Froka were originally part of Stories for Homes, which raised money for shelter even. And I wanted to create a story that celebrated its anniversary of its publication, which was on my website, and now is here for you to be able to see. Um, Hope you enjoy. Alina tucked her hair behind her ears. The sea breeze tingled at her cheeks, numbing her nose. It was freezing, snowy, and a winter's day. It had to be freezing for it to snow so close to the sea. She shivered, shoving her hands in her pockets as she trudged down to the village. Foroka had taken over the shop, buying Alina's father out, despite his attempt to give it to her. Alina shook her head. How Foroka could have that effect on him, she wasn't sure. Okay, so that wasn't quite the truth. She wasn't exactly immune to Froka's soft smile, or her laugh, or that infuriating habit of being funny when Alina was trying to be mad. It had been 2 years since she gave up the city and came home. 2 years of running a small country legal practice. It should bore her senseless. But it didn't. Contrary to every one of her doubts, she was happier than she'd ever been. She twiddled the ring on her finger. That had much to do with the owner of said soft smile. Neighbours who had once ceased to recognise her waved jolly hellos, asked how she was doing, how her parents were, and yes, how Froka was too. She wasn't Alina the lawyer any more. She came as a unit with the people she loved. Pensive face, either you've forgotten what snow looks like, or I've left lemon juice in your teacup, Froka said without looking up from her latest pottery project. The wooden counter was the same as it had been when her father owned the shop, but now there was more clay and paint covering it. Alina beamed. In spite of the fact she was attempting not to, in spite of the fact she needed to be serious and have an adult conversation, she knew she looked more like a besotted teenager. Ah, well. Lemon juice, really? Froka turned around, seashell necklace clanking as she did so, her hair a burnt copper, her eyes a twinkling charcoal. Made you smile, didn't it? It did. Alina found herself smiling again, and then cleared her throat as the neighbour passed by the window. I had a letter today. Froka waved to the neighbour, one eye on her current piece of work. You had lots of letters. So she'd seen it then. It's an amazing offer. That's how the supermarkets lure you in. Don't listen. It's not really buy one get one free at all. Froka's clothes were splattered with clay, her fingers, her face. She was as messy as her home. Funny, Alina sighed. From the attempt at wit, Froka was worried. If I took it, I would be away most of the time. Froka nodded, her eyes on the pot in her hands. It would mean leaving here for months. Froka nodded again, her gaze too intense on the pot, her eyes glinting with unshed tears. You need to do what's best for you. You worked hard. I can't expect you to give up. I ripped it up. Froka dropped the pot, which clunked onto the counter. She stared, blinking a few times. Well, say something. Froka continued to stare. Her eyes were so filled with shock. Alina covered her mouth to stifle the chuckle. How could she be so shocked? It's the wage they offered, Froka frowned. The perks. What would I need it for? She leaned her hip against the counter, her usual space these days. Did you really think I wanted to leave you? Froka shrugged. She flexed her long neck. To ward off tears, no doubt, soppy thing. I came to make sure you knew that. Alina ran her finger over the clay-covered countertop. Didn't want you worrying about it all day. Froka nodded. Mum wants to know if you want lunch, she smiled. It wasn't often Froka was stuck for words. I want to know if you'll shut up early and come and build a snowman. Froka's eyes lit up, but she still didn't seem to have the ability to speak. You remember when we used to build them as kids? Alina knew full well she did, but it was worth the smile on Froka's face to say so. Your grandmother wasn't happy I'd stolen most of her carrots. Well, one snowman would be lonely. Froka's voice sounded so quiet, so raw with tears. She wiped her hands on her jeans, shrugged on her thick jacket, and flicked the sign to closed. Which is why I wanted to build a family. Alina shook her head. She'd been a daft kid. Froka looked up, beaming at her. And pets. Alina nodded, the warmth of a smile filling her heart. And they needed somewhere to live. And neighbours. Froker walked close. Kids skidded past on makeshift sleds. The lights in the shop twinkled as snow filled the air. And their pets. Alina took Froker's hand and dragged her up the hill. I think you cleared out her pantry. Froker tugged at her, a cheeky smile on her face. Why the rush? I'm cold? She tried to keep the grin off her face. Alina, what you... Oh. Froker halted, a stunned look on her face. Her eyes shed brimming tears. Alina motioned to the carrots on the ground. It wasn't her most suave moment, by all means, but it had made her giggle. She'd hoped Froker would have done the same. Tears? She hadn't expected. You've never said it before. Froker sounded even more hoarse. So you didn't want me to? Maybe not the cleverest idea. Maybe it had been rash. It wasn't like she'd ever said anything remotely sweet. Maybe Froker liked it that way. She stared down at the carrot. Of course. Froker squeezed her hand. No one's ever told me they loved me with vegetables before. Alina shrugged. Well, I was going for 22 carrots, but that only got me to low. Yes, I can see that would be a problem. Froker's tears dribbled faster. Then her lips parted, and that soft, warm laughter rippled out. Then it built until it was a roar. Are you mocking my healthy option for bearing my heart? She put her hand on her hips, giggling with her. They give you vitamin A, you know. Froker bent double, her shoulders shaking with laughter, silent, punctuated with gasps. It's a good way to show that love isn't blind, right? Alina failed to stop the rumbling giggles pouring out. Froker grabbed her and dragged her next to the wonky ewe. What are you doing? Shuffle your feet. Froker held her hand, shoving snow out of the front with her boots. It takes both of us. What? Oh, she grinned. Froker turned her to look at the tracks they just made. Come on, let's go warm up. I'm freezing. I'm not. Alina's teeth chattered, but she didn't feel the cold. She felt something so warm, so beautifully warm, filling her heart. Let's go home. Froker led her through the gate and turned to close it. Alina looked at her parents' garden, knowing she'd have to explain to her mother later, but it didn't matter. The carrots and the shovelled snow spelt out why her heart bubbled with joy. I love you, too. Yeah, home. Yeah, she was home. Hope you enjoyed. Big smiles.